We will now be moving on to Section 5.6 and Measurement Traceability. Since the TNI standard is built upon the ISO requirements, some of this section is irrelevant as it relates to calibration labs. However, 5.6.1 starts with all equipment used for tests and/or calibrations, including equipment for subsidiary measurements having a significant effect on the accuracy or validity of the result of the test, calibration, or sampling, shall be calibrated before being put into service. This does apply for TNI testing labs. Outside of that, we are first concerned with Section 5.6.2.2, which discusses testing requirements for measurement traceability. Testing labs must have equipment that is calibrated and meets the uncertainty or accuracy needed to perform the test. That means if your test requires you to heat something in an oven at 400 degrees Celsius, your oven must be calibrated to meet that temperature. If you need your pipette to draw up 50 microliters, it needs to be calibrated to draw up 50 microliters. Items should be traceable to NIST. For the majority of environmental testing equipment, this is possible and needs to be done. Accredited calibrations are the best way to meet this. But if it is not possible, you must use certified reference materials. 5.6.3 discusses reference standards and reference materials. Much like calibration of the lab's equipment, procedure for the calibrations of its reference standard, including NIST thermometers and reference weights, need to have procedures and traceability just like your equipment. They also need to be calibrated before and after adjustment, and reference standards must be used for calibration or verification only. The program shall include when the lab is sending in its reference standards for calibration. 5.6.3.2 talks about reference materials, which shall be traceable to the SI where possible. Internal reference materials shall be checked as far as technically and economically practicable. Transported and stored in a way to prevent contamination. So, for example, don't store control organisms from microbiology in the same space as samples. Section 5.6.4 lists additional requirements from TNI for reference materials and reference standards. 5.6.4 starts with noting that laboratories must participate in PT studies. California ELAB already requires labs to participate in one PT for each method, matrix, and analyte, so this is covered. It continues on to note that labs need a documented procedure for purchasing, receiving, and storing consumable materials. Labs must also maintain records for all standards, reagents, reference materials, and media. This will mainly be the certificate of analysis, which should be included when you receive the standards or reagents. If it is not, you'll need to reach out to the manufacturer to get one, commonly downloading them from the manufacturer's website. An easy way to remember to get the certificate of analysis is incorporating a column for it in your receipt log. That way, when you receive items that need a certificate of analysis, you can check off that you have one. We also want to be sure that we read the certificate of analysis. If the standard is already low biased, it can throw off quality control results, and you need to be aware of this possibility. TNI also notes that you need to record the expiration date if it is provided by the manufacturer. When preparing standards and reagents, labs must maintain a record that includes traceability to the purchased stock or compound. This creates a parent/child relationship to trace the created standard back to the stock solution. Reference to the method of preparation, the date of preparation, expiration date, which cannot be longer than the expiration date of the stock solution, and the preparer's initials. On this record, you can record the actual method or reference a separate method that you might be using. Examples are included on the slide. Here's an example of a simple standard preparation record. It's given a unique ID. It tells us exactly what it was made with and how it was made. It tells us when it was prepared, who prepared it, and the expiration date of the standard. We also have information on the labeling of the container. We want to make sure you label it with the unique ID and the expiration date of the standard. Section 5.6 of the explanations from the training guide will give you additional information on the whats and whys. Traceability procedures need to encompass a lot of items. Please take a look at the example in your learner's guide. This is a great example of how you might construct a procedure to cover the many requirements noted in this section. On the slide, you see a bit of a hyperbolic, non-compliant example, but we have seen all sorts of wording and procedures to fill this area. The presented example does not have enough detail about the use of certified reference materials or standards and does not delve into the receipt process discussed in 564. A lot of deficiencies stem from this section because there is so much to note down to ensure good traceability. We often see labs forgetting to create unique IDs for both their prepared reagents and their recorded reagents, which causes problems with traceability of standards through the laboratory. If non-conforming report comes back, the lab won't be able to pinpoint the standard that they used without a unique ID, which could lead to a wider investigation. Labs not linking equipment to data is another one. Be sure that you're noting what equipment is used for which test, and even checking of samples and environmental conditions. If you use a specific thermometer for a certain refrigerator, make sure you list it on the temperature log, or you will lose that traceability as well. We also want to make sure that our calibrations are linked to our data. This is commonly found as a deficiency when the use of spectrophotometers.